Go for it.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good morning. My name is Daouda Traore, and I was born and raised in Burkina Faso. So I went to school here at the humble state. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about our company first, and then I'm going to talk about the energy pool in Sub-Saharan Africa. And then we're going to also look at the statistics of 4 countries, including Burkina Faso, my country, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, and Ghana. But before that, I would like to introduce Andrew, which is my business partner. He's going to talk about the company before I dive into the statistics. Thank you.
Go fast.
Okay.
So let's all take a step back from the technical language that we've been dealing with the last 2 days. It's been really interesting hearing all of your perspectives on things. But from our side, we're a startup. We are an international energy management firm, and we're a social enterprise. So that means that we're a for-profit company with a core philosophy that every initiated action that we take or everything that we participate in has to have a positive social, environmental, and economic effect on the region. We're going to be doing that through attacking issues of energy independence, energy security, energy access, equal access, and energy affordability in these regions. We'll be doing that through offering many services to these places. Again, a reminder that in a lot of these places, the grid doesn't exist yet. And so we don't have to worry about this 70-year-old grid that all of you are working so hard to retrofit and get the United States on track. We're jumping in with 21st century technology right away. So we're going to be dealing with on-site generation, both residential and non-residential. And we will provide auditing and management, energy auditing and management for organizations that reach out to us to tackle energy efficiency of programs that are already in place and systems that are already in place. And also working with utility scale projects like solar farms, creating microgrids, etc. We're currently in the initial phase of determining whether or not we can do community solar projects, and that is going to be a similar type of project aimed at smaller rural communities and tribal communities in Sub-Saharan Africa. And so that will be, it just needs to be framed differently because you're not dealing with massive pools of finances, etc., established policies. Okay, so that's the who and what that we want to do, that we intend to do, and that's our mission. But why are we doing this? Like, why is this important to us? So historically, so-called developed countries like the United States, European countries, have enjoyed the technological results of the theft of natural resources from the African continent. And so that's our history, whether it's positive or, you know, who it affects positively or negatively, that's the situation that we're sitting in today. And what we can do today is acknowledge the current international policy trend, which is why they brought me on, because I specialize in indigenous rights. And so we're riding the current international trend to return stewardship and control of natural resources to indigenous populations. So in 2012, the United Nations adopted the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and countries have signed on. The vast majority of countries that participate in the UN have signed on to that agreement. And so there are several articles within that that dictate how organizations, companies, and countries must interact with indigenous groups in regards to natural resources, energy procurement, etc. So we're riding that trend to return the cultural, intellectual, and natural resources to the people in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa specifically. If you want more information about that, I'd be happy to answer questions later, or you could go on our website. We have a couple of articles, one titled Community Resilience, that tackles this issue as well. We believe that electrification of these regions will unlock the modern key to social self-determination and poverty alleviation in these areas. You have electrification, you can have connectivity, you have media, you have exposing of issues that the world can get involved in, investors can get involved in. You have development and economic development to increase employment, increase education in those regions. So this is the first step to tackling all those other issues. Creating community resilience through bringing this technology there is made possible because this technology has been developed in these developed countries. And so we're going to be bringing that back there and hoping to hand the torch off of expertise to them where the resources are collected originally, the technology being produced there as well, and then independently operated and managed by them. That is the why.
Thank you, Andrew. So I want to know if there's anybody here in the room who has traveled to Sub-Saharan Africa or Africa, generally speaking. All right. So I just want to make sure it's not challenging your geography. It's to make sure that I'm just explaining things more details. And bear with me because I'm a French speaker. I'm not a native English speaker, so I may be a little bit tumbled. Oh, wow, thank you. All right. So as Andrew just mentioned, and I would like to just explain what's Sub-Saharan Africa first. Sub-Saharan is the area of the continent that lies under the Sahara Desert. So according to the World Bank, there are 46 countries out of 54 countries in Africa. It's not a country, it's a continent. So I want to just emphasize on that again. So then there are 650 million people who live in that region without access to electricity. And nearly 730 million people rely on dangerous, inefficient, and environmentally destructive form of cooking fuels. So looking at this statistic, it just makes sense that we get engaged in modern form of fuel that can just curdle the situation down there. So I will just explain a little bit how energy is produced between and distributed within these sub-Saharan countries. Actually, you have 4 major pools. They call it energy pools. These are countries that are grouped into major pools that they can definitely let me just go back to my note because I need a little bit support. So you have 5 major pools, but I'm going to talk about 4 of them because the 4 of them are in Sub-Saharan Africa. You have the West African Power Pool, the Central African Power Pool, Eastern and Southern. So this allows countries to exchange or sell their excess according to the needs of the neighbors. So it allows exchange and then avoid a little bit of what I can call waste, if I can express it so. But it's not working that well because countries are not self-sufficient. So it is difficult for Ghana to sell all the time, although they can do it sometimes because they have a different kind of structure in terms of energy mix. And if you look at the map here, this is the West African pool, the Central African pool, the Southern African pool, and the Eastern African pool. And in between, you have countries like the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, and Tanzania. And if you look at the map, they have access to two poles, meaning that they can buy and sell from the central or the southern pole. And up here you have Libya, who could also buy and sell from the North African pole. I'm not talking about that because it's not a Sub-Saharan country. Okay, thank you. So, but this is basically how things are distributed between countries quickly. So, population without electricity. Côte d'Ivoire has almost 74% of the population don't have access to electricity out of 25 million people. And Burkina Faso is around 83%. If you look at the number, 14 out of 19 million. And Ghana is 28, is doing really, better than other countries. And Mali has the same percentage if you look at the numbers, 11 million people out of 19. So again, if you, because I'm focusing on Burkina Faso because that's where we are starting to, work on projects. And the need is really greater there. And I'm from there, so it was very easy for me to just network with government and the population because I speak the language and also I understand better the culture. So I'm using this different numbers because this is in terms of percentage when you look at urban people, urban, national and rural areas. So we have 17% of the people who have access to modern energy and 56 in urban areas and 1% in rural places. This is quite alarming, and also it's an opportunity to see where we could really engage and try to tackle this issue seriously. So I also use graphs for people who like see pictures, but this is the same number. We're talking about the same thing. Here you have, in terms of production, we produce only 944 million kilowatts. And if you compare it to all these two other countries, three other countries, they are, ahead of the game, giving the same conditions. Let me go back a little bit to show you what is the energy resources available. What's happening? Oh, okay. For the link, okay. Escape. Oh, okay. Thank you. I don't know. Can you help me, Andrew? Sorry. Control. Okay. For time consideration, okay. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead, but the resources are available, and what do I do again? Control was, I use Mac, so I'm always confused with it. Okay. Thank you. So in terms of production from the entire region, so we're looking at the 4 countries, and I will stay consistent with the colors. Ghana is the yellow, Côte d'Ivoire is the blue, Burkina Faso is the red, and Mali is the green. So we contribute up to 3.9% of the entire production of energy in the entire, within these 4 countries. So there's a room for improvement. I'm just emphasizing on this because that's why we started to operate in Burkina Faso, because the need is really big and the situation is not happy. I was there 2 months ago and I could count like 15 blackouts. So for people who have access to modern energy. So this is not good at all for businesses, for people, for hospitals. It has a huge impact on the livelihood of people. Electricity consumption. So we produce less than what we consume. So that means that we have to buy I say we because I'm from Burkina Faso. I was emphasizing that. If you produce less than what you produce, what you consume, it means that you are importing. And you know, the graphs is always talking about the same thing. You can look at it in terms of image. Ghana produce more, but they still consume more, so they sell less. Burkina Faso here is still behind. We can't export at all because we can't produce as much as we need. Same graph explaining the same situation. And here's what we produce, 443 million kilowatt, and we consume 1 billion and 300 something. That's quite a deficit. So this is where the implication of the private sector. If, for example, someone wanted to build a solar farm and sell energy to the national company, electricity company of the country, because I have to clarify this. Most countries have what do you call that? National utility companies, meaning that the utility companies are run by our state-owned enterprises. So they are desperately in need of supply. So there's a room for that, even though it's not the most efficient approach. I mean, we could just contact people directly from rural places. We don't need to work on a big scale, but there's a need. We can just get rid of it. So the approach is also to talk with the government and see how we can improve that production of electricity locally, speaking with a renewable source. So the capacity of the country is only 306,000 kilowatts. So it's not great at all. So I talked to the government. They're very open to a power purchase agreement, and we're working on the solar farm project quickly. 86%, 87% of what we use as electricity in Burkina Faso is from fossil fuels. This is the percentage. You can see how African economies are dependent on fossil fuel. We need to change that because it's not sustainable, and we can't do the same as the West. That would be bad for the planet. So that's why we are trying to step in quickly and see how we can do as small as possible, but we can contribute to changing this situation. Same graph, 0%, we don't have a nuclear. I think that's a good news. 10.5% of our total installations are from hydro, which is good, but it's not enough. We need to improve. And then we have a lot of resources in terms of solar. I think that's the route to go. And actually, there is a solar farm that has produced 33 megawatts of our current consumption. So that makes us better off, and if you compare numbers here, but it means nothing, definitely. All right, so I'm gonna skip this. Time. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to just present this number.
And again, if you wanted to hear about something in more detail, you can talk to us afterwards.